All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Shy's big podcast slash discussion unnamed video type thing that sometimes occurs. We have a big important crew of people here, including Shy as usual, and then we have DK as
Hi.
you pretty usual.
hmm
DK, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm DK. You know me from such YouTube, Twitch, and Twitters as DK Diamantes.
We also have Headshot,
Hi, I am Headshot from youtube.com/headshot.
and very importantly, our guest for today is Miss Rebecca Ford of Digital Extremes.
What's up, everyone? Happy to be here.
And then I am hosting, I guess, today, and I'm Brozyme. I do stupid things a lot. So here I am. And we're going to ask many questions and talk about many things with Rebecca and just kind of get input on where things are in the wake of the partner program shutting down and with the looming creator program in construction, let's say. But before that, Rebecca, if you just want to kind of tell anyone who, for some reason, doesn't know what you do at Warframe and kind of like where your title's at currently, because I imagine it's higher than like community manager at this point.
I hope in the process of verbalizing this, I will figure out what I actually do because at this point I don't know. But the ultimate business card gospel that we use, I am the live ops and community director at DE. I've been there for 9.5 years at Digital Extremes. We make Warframe.
All right, and that has obviously evolved over the course of the game, growing a lot, and then I of course know this because you've talked about it in the past, but your kind of career as it's been, I suppose, kind of began its like roots with Warframe, and you've just kind of stuck with it, right?
Yep. I think my first foot in the door experience was in my third year of study at the local university. And I came on board, and Darkness 2 hadn't even released. So I was within the company when we were still doing published titles. And then about a year and a half, 2 years passed where we transitioned into the free to play sort of Hail Mary that you now know as Warframe.
And that has been obviously uh the road, I suppose, as Warframe has gone through extreme amounts of revisions and just been around and an important figure of the gaming space for a good long time as it stands.
hmm
So, with that, things that have been, I would think, quite important in Warframe's history and has also been around for a good chunk of Warframe's history is the Warframe Partner Program, which just recently ended. I think probably a lot of us have different feelings on like the program ending, but it seems like it's not so much that the program needed to end, and more that it needed to include more people and just get an overall refresh. Would you
Yeah,
say that's like fair?
I would say that need will always be subjective from the what a programmer business needs point of view. I'm obviously speaking to former partners, and as someone who's worked at DE for the first, let's say, 2.5 years of Warframe, we didn't have a partner program. We didn't really have anything official. We started building this fan channels program, which then evolved into the partner program as you would have known it for the past 6 years.
As Shai said, she thinks it was a long time coming personally, and it was tainted by bad elements beyond repair. Do you think that that's accurate overall? I think I would generally echo that, just due to some structural problems with it.
I mean, I watched your YouTube video, Shy, and it was very clear you were very optimistic and you actually didn't feel that way at all. So I don't know what to believe between what I'm reading and what I
Whoa.
heard. So this is coming
Wow.
as a shock to me. Um, but yeah, I think everything could use like revisions and take the experience you have to rebuild something better. I think Warframe is a version of that.
Oh
Like
yeah,
if you think of the classic of Plutarch's classic puzzle, the ship of Theseus, it's like, is the ship that you started with the same thing if you've replaced every part over the course of time? You know, like can you still
Yeah.
call it the same thing? And I often think about that, you know, mind puzzler in context of Warframe and its um, peripheral programs for the game because none of them are the same as they were when they started. So can you even call them the same thing? And for some a program that buckets a whole bunch of people that either are career creators, hobbyist creators, all of these different things, what we had didn't work for that variety of dedication, I would say. And frankly, it didn't work for the ambiguity over what actually is a Warframe partner. That was up to interpretation for each partner in the program, which meant no one was happy with how other people used the title, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And then that also, of course, coincides with, unfortunately, it was not originally structured to include a lot of the just strict fan artists, just people making art. And then, of course, eventually the Captura art that has kind of become popular since Captura got introduced, of course.
Y-
So that
yeah.
was obviously a thing that you guys always wanted to do because art was always a thing on prime time and it just, unfortunately, wasn't a part of it.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I think, yeah, we have such a wonderful fan art community that we have supported in different ways, whether it's partnering with established companies to allow them a source of revenue, like Tenogen or the For Fans by Fans to get fan art in sort of a merchandise capacity. But I think, there's a very, depending on how you view a community, like you're very familiar with your Discord community and your YouTube community, but you can't at least when you look at a community tool set, there's a huge Captura Instagram community that do really fun stuff. And there's no reason that they can't get a little support or acknowledgement from
Mhm.
Warframe's community team to help them just either continue what they're doing, do it in a way that just is a little less difficult for them at present time, if that difficulty exists.
Yeah, just to be able to call attention to the cool things people are doing in as many places as possible, really, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so all of this community management and dealing with like the partner program shutting down and everything else, and like just having all of these contacts and stuff. I'm curious, just as a general question, how being part of the community team and being like a very visible part of Digital Extremes overall has affected you in your more personal online life. Because obviously, recently you've been streaming a good chunk of like Final Fantasy 14. And I was just curious if working for DE, there has been any like conflict for you for like streaming a game that's not Warframe, or if that had like if there's no weirdness at all with that kind of thing, because I would think there'd be some kind of weirdness when there's like I work for this company but I'm playing this other company's game, or if that's just not a thing at all. I'm just curious about it.
It is kind of, because I will be fully honest, the quarantine changed a lot of our tolerances for doing things that help with our own mental health. So for a long time, if we work at DE and we're very public ambassadors of the brand, it's really not in our interest to start a very public entry into another game, just because there's a lot of risks involved. Like
Mm.
there are risks involved, and if you speak disparagingly about another game you're playing, it's just a bad look. And like I would never do that. But we've always erred on the side of caution to just we can publicly game about whatever. Like I don't think
Right.
anyone is surprised to know how much I love Magic and The Witcher, but
Oh
I
yeah.
never streamed them.
What?
Yeah.
Hey, I said
And
hey.
Nier Automata. Let's not forget Nier
Yeah,
Automata.
of course, of course. Which, by the way, DK.
Oh, if you get me started on Nier, we're not going to talk about anything Warframe related. All right, like,
But like, if
I,
there were
I
ever,
still haven't finished it. I need to
oh,
finish the
Oh,
final
you
one.
gotta. You
it
gotta.
doesn't. You don't finish it. It finishes. Oh wait,
it,
never mind.
it finishes
That was-
you.
that was
It
something
does.
really-
I'll say it.
Hmm.
I'll say it.
All right. DK's here for it.
Genuinely upset that game ended, though. I wanted to
Mhm.
talk
Oh,
more
yeah.
of it. Anyway, continue. We're not. This isn't a Nier podcast.
Well, I mean, why not?
It could be
Okay.
now.
Well,
People
why?
do
Yeah,
what they
why
want.
not?
Yeah. So just generally speaking, the separation of this whole work from home and everything, we felt more comfortable streaming other games only at this moment in
Hmm.
sort of our exploration of the brand versus the individual. So, yeah, I think I never did it before a quarantine and I started during it, and that should be a pretty clear causality in my mind.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always been interesting to me, like on like whenever let's say for example, and this happened many years ago at this point, whenever Steve was just on a dev stream and he was like, "Hey, the Hyperlight Drifter shirt, this game's amazing," and it's like how how that interaction happens, and like obviously it's great to just love video games, and the people working on them would, I would think usually be like, yeah, we love video games, of course, which we all here do. But it's always been interesting just from like a company standpoint, like how that stuff works out. So it's cool to hear about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting question. Like from a company standpoint, there isn't one. It's always been up to our judgment and personal risks involved, and we work as a team to identify those. Like, there are some people on the team that do stream other games and have for years, and that's their prerogative to do so because they're not quite, um, you know, they're not watched as closely as the community team, I'll say. That's not saying
Right.
they don't have an audience.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking disparagingly at all. I'm just
Mhm.
saying there are people who are actively interested in ta watching us in bad faith, I'll say.
Yeah.
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 I mean, unfortunately, we are always going to have the people that want to believe that like everyone at DE has never played Warframe, which is just not correct. But I mean, it's just a part of the community that like no matter how much, even if you guys all streamed Warframe for 12 hours every single day, they would still say the same thing, right? In some cases.
Yeah, and they can say whatever they want. Like, it doesn't change the facts. It just changes. I think there's a quote of like, the lie can go halfway across the internet before the truth puts its boots on, or some version of that quote that I'm sure I just butchered. And that's the reality in gaming. And I don't want to say I've given up fighting that cohort of the internet, but every effort I spend trying to dispel such narratives takes away from actually making Warframe a better game and place to be. So it's a dichotomy of the limited time we have to act on things, and if that time is cannibalized by such, um, you know, those things really.
Yeah, like we're working on things that bring positivity instead of trying to quell negativity, right? Yeah, and I mean we've seen the same thing come around with the end of the partner program. Like there are some really hardline opinions that I've seen in my comment section and on Reddit and so on and so forth about like certain creators and like was this thing like conspiracy tinfoil hat only done to do this or only done to do this, and they're all like very very different things, but those pockets of people are gonna believe that. And
No matter
like the best thing to be done
Yeah,
is
no matter
really
what.
to try and make the new Warframe creator program just better than the Warframe partner program, and that's like that's really all that can be done. You can't convince somebody of something they've already 100% decided on. Really,
Yeah. You can only make it as good as it can be.
we haven't heard a lot about the like kind of policies that are going to go into place with the people that are going to be a part of the new Warframe creator program. Can you give us any insight into, I guess, how creators are going to be evaluated? And maybe if that's different between what people are doing on YouTube and what people are doing on Twitch and so on and so forth.
At present
Mhm.
time, like even during this conversation, we're still making changes. So anything I say now probably won't be true tomorrow. There's two key things that really stood out when Taylor and the team and the partner team put out the announcement. And the two key things are burnout and toxicity. And I think those will really be the largest part of what any changed policies have in their involvement, because I think
Mm.
burnout is the sinister poison in any PvE game community,
Hmm.
because like, in a PvP community, for example, like if you hate play a PvP game and you hate broadcast a PvP game, there's always a clear end point for you. You lost a match, you had a crappy opponent, bam, either uninstall, you can have your little spike of hate play in PvP.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But in PvE games, I think burnout contributes to hate playing in a way that's much, much more sinister, because it's a matter of the opponent is no longer, the game. It's the devs for not meeting a standard of pacing for content, quality for content. And the hate playing is this burnout inducing, like, look for the faults before the fun mentality that I hope that our policies can protect people from in terms of making content.
Right. And just to like kind of coincide with that, obviously I'm not going to name anybody, but being a part of the partner program, it was clear that people would get burned out, and there were some people that would only play for like, hey, this major release came out, I'm gonna play it for a while, and then the next major release is gonna be the next time that creator is gonna like really get into the game. And in that interim, there were some creators that didn't really feel like that was enough, like to be a part of the partner program, because that kind of thing wasn't really super clarified. Um, so I think policies around that of like when people can like come and go will really help with people in the new program feeling like other people like aren't doing enough or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
exactly.
Mhm.
I absolutely get that. So the intent would be that uncertainty about what is enough would be very clear,
Hmm.
because in no way should a policy give someone the impression that they need to overdo it for the program, for their status or whatever.
Mhm.
Obviously, you mentioned like kind of the current events that we're not going to go deeply into because they are very current. But there's a lot of harassment and like sexual harassment and things that are coming out in kind of the whole content creator sphere right now, and just kind of the conventions and games industry at large. Um, so I'd imagine that stuff will also definitely, it definitely is affecting these policies as it all happens and as these things just continue to come out.
Yes, we have to be proactive, and we have to do everything we can to prevent outlets for people to ever do things like this again. And I am beyond grateful that so many people have spoken out, because I guarantee you the positive change as a result of the bravery will be industry changing for a lot of policies and partners. And I know that's happening right in my own backyard. So I feel, grateful that these women have spoken out, and in some cases the men have spoken out about what's going on, because if you don't speak out, like how, like, it's so difficult to make judgments without these reports and conversations.
The shutdown of Mixer was announced no less than about 3 hours ago, max now. So these are probably going to be some very fresh takes.
Yeah.
But I'd be really curious to know what your thoughts are on that shutdown happening in just a month here, like very quickly being announced in the wake of a lot of stuff
Mhm.
coming out about what seemed like some systemic racism that was maybe occurring in the business end of Mixer, and how it might affect. Obviously, Warframe will probably not be streaming on Mixer anymore, as it will be gone. But
Yeah.
how that might affect things going forward, as there were a number of like Mixer partners with Warframe as well.
It just feels like a loss to me, a loss to the people that I know that worked on it, a loss to streamers that have advocated for it. And we used Mixer, and we integrated the Mixer reward system, and we really,
Mhm.
tried to be a good partner. And um, I just hope the people we worked with can land on their feet as well. Like, we worked with people on it, and
Yeah.
ultimately for us to have no more Mixer is a pretty huge bummer, because we went and did Mixer raids, and we supported Mixer partners, and all of those
Mhm.
people are now left with what?
There were a
Um,
bunch of people that disagreed with Twitch's policies and things that they thought Twitch were doing wrong, so they moved over to Mixer because they thought they were, that Mixer was going to be better, and then just have the rug pulled out of them with like a month's notice is.
yeah.
I really feel for them.
These smaller streamers really got screwed because obviously the smaller streamers didn't do anything. And I say smaller streamers, but there's still people that are bringing in hundreds, if not thousands of people. Their livelihood is there. And then just like that, it's over. Like they didn't get they didn't really get a 30-day notice. It's just like, I hope you can make it somewhere else, I guess.
They didn't even know it was coming either. Like half of them found out on like the people that were broadcasting found out on stream and like
Yeah, and obviously
Yeah,
this stuff is still ongoing.
I
Um,
saw a screenshot of people finding it live, and it just took everything not to like hold back tears for them, because holy shit.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
I couldn't even imagine like how devastated and just it would kill me.
and I
yeah.
think, like, to the industry reflection overall at such a occurrence happening today of all days when we're recording, I imagine in my mind of how the industry works and what my experience in the community has taught me, the reality for a lot of creators of content on YouTube and Twitch is that they have zero control over the platform they're on and the products they cover. And both of those things, and I say zero control broadly, obviously there's a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that do, but I'm saying in a very broad sense, you don't control the games and you don't control the platforms. All you control is your brand, and you are 100% at the mercy of other teams to be able to do what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
That, like, to see a platform fold today in this nature, it just must be, it must be terrifying to exist in a if it is your livelihood to exist, and I know this happens all the time with YouTube with the adpocalypses and stuff, but like you're essentially always at the mercy at someone else's decisions for your livelihood. As someone that works in the community, it would be foolish of us not to pursue interesting ways to support people that like Warframe enough to create content about it. So we'll always have the ambition to make a program that can lead to moments like that. It would be cruel, not, in my opinion, to not have a version of some type of network where people can do that. But it there are obstacles of doing it well, and we have failed on a lot of those obstacles recently. So
Yeah, I mean, like
So-
there was a lot about the partner program that was also like good, like behind the scenes good, I suppose I would say. Like it was obviously it was a channel that was essentially opened up to creators to be able to organize things like what we're doing right now. Like we have you here to ask some important questions, like community questions, and like talk about this stuff. And it's very unlikely that's a get together like this would be set up without a program like the partner program. And then even beyond that, just being able to talk about like feedback about the game and like all this stuff with the community team has all been really important for the longest time.
yeah, and I think like if you look at the limitations of the 8-hour workday, and if your job is community based, it makes sense for us to have awareness and relationships and insight into people who are sort of impromptu community leaders themselves, because it gives you the closest thing you can get to objective agreements or disagreements with a given feedback topic,
Mm.
by virtue of what is covered in a video and how the viewers reacted to that coverage, subjectivity notwithstanding. And I think that's why a lot of people, generally speaking, have a really good practice of trying to keep up on streams and YouTube within the community for those more organized ways of getting consensus on things, because ultimately that's in our interest always to do is what's the consensus on the feedback for this, what do we need to change. And as a collective effort, having YouTubers and streamers provide feedback that their community then reacts to gives us tools and the closest thing we can get to objective measurement of like, was this well received or not? And all of those things I think are made easier when you have creators that are working together for that collective goal.
So that actually connects directly to the next thing, which I wanted to talk about, which was we obviously had the test cluster, which all active partners at the time were invited to for the big Railjack overhaul that was in testing, I suppose, at the time. And the feedback from that seemed like it was very like well received and well implemented. And I think personally that that update was a huge success in kind of reinvigorating people to want to play Railjack. And we have the hard mode test cluster coming up. I was wondering if you could give us any insight onto if previous partners would still either still have access to the test cluster, or if there's going to be like a reset essentially on who has access to that.
Our intention is to include all active partners from the previous weekend in this one. So that plan, as well as any active participants from the prior one, and then we're going to add, we're thinking about 1,000 more people. So like the industry rules of like, what is your failure to show rate for any given effort? So like whenever we run on, we know the attendee rate, and it has held true for every single event we've ever done. Like X% of people just won't show up to the physical event, and now we have a baseline for X amount of percent of people won't show up for your digital test cluster event. So if we gave 500 people keys, we now know the baseline of like who's actually going to redeem it and use it, and what were the errors in communication of their key, and so on and so forth. So
Gotcha.
we feel to get a better sample size, we simply must increase the keys we send out. But that's not to say the first one didn't have a great sample size, because it did, and it did what we were hoping it would do, which was provide like practical feedback in a method that was organized. So
Mm.
I'm super excited for the next one, which is
Whoa.
coincidentally 5 days from now.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow,
All right.
that's
So
soon.
really,
Okay.
okay. All right. Awesome. I'm very excited for that personally. So I've always been of the opinion that there is a underserved voice in the community that is the very casual player, like the person that isn't going to be on Reddit. They're not going to be like they're going to watch a YouTube video, but they're never going to comment on it. They're not in our Discord communities, and it's that like non-vocal player that plays Warframe and what they might be encountering a lot of like the more inexperienced game players and stuff. And I view them as like a less vocal community that is still very important. I was wondering if with the test cluster, if you've noticed that it trends towards a specific type of person that really wants to be included, or if it's more all over, and how you account for the differences between your much more casual players and your much more hardcore players in trying to get their opinions heard, and if like what the solutions are to that kind of thing, I suppose.
That's a very good question. So I think like the method we chose to launch it immediately uh, presents a bit of a bias of who's going to get it because we made it a forum post opt-in, right? We made the
Mhm.
forum post, they had to enter into it. However, when we did a sample, like an account audit of everyone that posted, a lot of them, it was their first ever forum post at all. So we actually did hit a previously
Oh,
silent cohort of players,
Hmm.
which was really interesting. And when we mapped out, who participated and what were their respective mastery ranks, what was even their Railjack experience, because we were very clear that the first test cluster weekend was for Railjack Revisited. We saw a pretty diverse like splatter of people that only had one intrinsic ranked at all or no intrinsic at all ranked. So I like to say that we got a pretty like varied group of participants, but things would only improve with more variation, I suppose would be a good way of
mhm.
phrasing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and anytime you're increasing your sample size, you're obviously going to get better data, right?
Yeah.
I was just like talking about feedback in general. How do you go about getting the feedback, especially with the test cluster? You focus mainly on the forums, or do you do quite a wide net in terms of YouTube, Twitch, even Reddit, and places like that? Like, how do you sort of go about getting your feedbacks?
The test cluster project that we did for the Railjack stuff was just a giant collective mapping of feedback we got from videos, from forum posts, from the polls we did, from the actual participation rates, just to try and put it all into one essentially go or no go pitch of, is this objectively better? And if the answer was yes, it was okay, what parts were the biggest improvements? And then you would kind of do like almost like a tree mentally from there of like what was good about this and what was not like, and just kind of go down to make sure that every segment of the game we considered had a feedback category to go with it. So every aspect of the intrinsics. And then we kind of moved on to, okay, now how are we going to apply this to the bigger Railjack problems we know we didn't address in this cluster, which were, the lack of a command intrinsic and the mission variety, which is basically what we have to do next, right? Is apply everything we've learned to the next phase of the Railjack revisit.
Hmm. I think a lot of positive changes came out of the test cluster, just from my point of view, on like the initial iteration and then the second iteration being considerably better, even.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we'll find out for sure in 4 or 5 days because we're launching the hard mode test cluster stuff this weekend. So for me, what has the past 2 weeks been? Well, it's been making sure we understand what hard mode is, what it isn't, how we can utilize a test cluster, my mistake, for the direction of it. Because at the end of the day, the feedback we can't act on is, this isn't interesting enough and we want it to be this, because our goals aren't to make it some grandiose quest series with like all this stuff. It's like, nope,
Right.
it's higher level cap so you don't have to wait an hour to get to level 100 enemies, some epeen rewards, and a reason to go back through the star chart to fight all of the missions you may not have returned to for quite some time. And those are our goals. And
Right.
feedback doesn't respect those goals, then we're not having the same conversation. So I
Yeah.
think ultimately I am super optimistic. And again, like this is one of those things where it's like I've been working on this upcoming test cluster thing for hard mode for so long, but then would you rather me be dealing with, like YouTube drama? No, I want to be working on the test cluster. Like this
Right.
is what
Of
I know
course.
will be making Warframe better. So that's why I have a team and we all work together on it. And I think some people don't understand that we do have to make those choices as a team sometimes. Like, and that's part of the job. But man, what a paradise it would be if I could
If you
focus on
had
test
enough
cluster
people to focus on everything.
and that, yeah, which we are getting there. I have an amazing team, and I would never
Oh,
guess it
yeah.
would.
Mhm.
I personally think the team at DE, the community team, and everybody there, like they do a lot of different jobs, but there's a certain limitation on. Well, we can't have 100 people to deal with 100 things in just this one little part. So
Yeah, exactly.
everybody's got to figure out something to do, especially whenever teams need to be formed for certain tasks.
Yep. You got to prioritize.
I guess kind of roundabouting back to the Warframe Creator Program, something that I think a lot of people have an interest in, which are just the glyphs in the game. Obviously, glyphs are being hard disconnected from partners in any way, and they're going to be kind of their own thing. And the Warframe Creator Program is bringing in a lot of fan artists and creators in that regard. And I was wondering if you have any, like, I guess, opinion to speak on in terms of if you think that glyphs are going to become more common or more rare, like in terms of when D is willing to be like, oh, this person is cool and they've done X and Y and they should have a glyph. That makes sense. And if like the restrictions are going up or down, I suppose, in terms of like who gets glyphs, because obviously everyone here has a glyph. So for us, it's
I don't. So
fair. Well, wait a minute. Now, hold on. The Lotus glyph.
Yeah, there are plenty of Lotus glyphs.
I was about to say,
There are like
Yeah.
8 of them.
I don't got a glyph. What about me?
That's fair enough.
We need a Rebecca glyph. That's coming out.
Rev needs glyph. Yep.
Yeah, true facts. Well, hey, well, she gets to speak to the requirements going up or down, and I don't know if this is up or down, but Rebecca should probably have one, right?
We're trying to do it in a way that is less stress-inducing for creators that may have had a horrible experience with the glyph scenario, and I think that's a tragedy of good intentions. The
Yeah.
case study, right? The glyph hunting case study is a sheer tragedy of good intentions where everything on paper should have worked so great, and then the only factor you didn't account for was the tenacity of the collector and what that does for a creator, because it must really suck to be trying to build yourself as a brand and build yourself as an act like a community builder, have someone enter the arena, take your glyph and leave every time, or harass you for it endlessly, or sell
Yeah.
it, or like all this crazy shit. So
Yeah,
I think we all probably have a story about that, or
Yep.
have a story about someone being like, "Hey, I'll give you X amount of plat if you give me glyph." And it's like, no,
well,
that's not how this works at all.
the best way to deal with it is to give up, right? And so for some people, and I don't blame them, because you're new to this phenomenon and it offends your very sensibility as a brand that you're just like, nope, that's enough.
Mhm.
yeah. And then obviously, whenever you go, nope, that's enough for me, it only intensifies some of those people because they want your
yeah.
glyph still, and you are just done with the whole thing. And it's
Got it.
an unfortunate cyclical thing, I think.
That
It
is one
and
of the big reasons I made my glyph global, is because then I didn't have to deal with any of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, the intention behind even that structure was like, you have to look at everyone has an opportunity to get new people in their audiences for their channels. And
Mhm.
anything we can do to provide that opportunity means that if 100 people ask you for a glyph and 2 stay, that's 2 people that you might not have had earlier
Mhm.
in your community. So there is, I think that's a pretty cold way of looking at it, but it's also, I mean, that's something I've seen in practice occur for
Mhm.
8 years in my career of providing people opportunities to get viewers, and how many of them stick around is always a crapshoot. But when they do, you grow,
Yeah.
and that's a fact.
Yeah.
But at what cost? Your sanity for glyph codes? Hell no. Well, I've
I
seen-
mean, it's not D's fault for making the glyph. It's just
Oh, no.
nobody quite anticipates the ferocity with which people want the glyph.
I mean, I'm sure we all very much remember that whenever the glyph stuff was even announced, that like, hey, this is happening, it was extremely exciting for everyone
Oh, yeah.
involved, because people wanted like more glyphs, more art in the game. It's cool that like creators were going to be getting them. Like that was an incredible positive thing. And I still think overall that glyphs are a great addition to the game just in general. And I would love to see more of them be added. But yeah, it just becomes tough in some cases
Yeah.
for people to handle having one whenever there's so many Warframe players that want all of them.
And I mean, I deal with those players in other capacities, but I get paid to do so. So
Yeah.
the people that glyph hunters also happen to be Excalibur Prime hunters, and my inbox happens to be full of that all the time. So the difference, of course, being it's my job to deal with.
Yeah, and even then,
Yeah,
it's still
true.
just real unfortunate.
Hold up. Are there people that really beg you for Excalibur Prime and you have an inbox full of that?
I would say I could probably at any point in time tell you at least once a week, there is a give me an exclusive thing request from someone, whether it's Excalibur Prime, whether it's something that like doesn't exist yet. Like it's the same mindset of player, right?
Hmm.
Which is I
Sure. Yeah.
want
Yeah.
something that I want
Yeah.
something that I can't get. Requests are endless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At
And I
least the
mean,
glyph is tangible, though. Like Excalibur Prime is such an intangible Warframe thing that to even ask for it is like,
well,
it's lunacy.
Tell that to Shy. It's her. Okay.
Oh,
Your lunacy
oh.
ends Shy. Your lunacy
Wow.
is
Wait, I thought you and Shy were the same person.
we
Oh,
are, and the fact that people don't know that is quite remarkable.
you calling yourself out, Red?
It's easy to run two empires, you know? You have
Yeah.
my
Okay.
like if you play both sides, you can't lose because I can be DE and I can also be a YouTube channel that bashes on DE. Therefore, I
Whoa.
you always win.
That's some Inception level
Wow.
shit right there,
You
dude.
make a good decision, DE praise. Make a bad decision, YouTube praise.
wait, it's a fact of life, my friends. This is business 101.
Uh,
Be the hamburger bun company and the hamburger. It's perfect.
the last question that I really wanted to ask, because I think it's really interesting because it's outside of the norm up to what we had really seen at that point. And that was that on multiple dev streams and stuff, like I think it's fairly well known that in some capacity, you were sort of in charge for Revenant's power set or balance or design or something along that chain. And I would just really love to hear more about like how it came about that you were involved with that, and then kind of like if you're still involved with like where Revenant's at right now and like changes that might come to him in the future or anything like that.
Yeah,
Just kind of the whole experience.
I think it was just a matter of experimentation as the team grew. There were some opportunities for people to get involved with different things. So I had always been really involved in every Warframe from inception in terms of um, just what was the next theme going to be and what had the team worked on and who was working on what and what is the feedback loop going to be. So I've always I've kind of been the what the frick the midwife for every Warframe, right? Like I'm in the room when the baby's being born, and I'm not the doctor, and I'm not the mama, but I'm there to see the process and to see what happens. And you're gonna love that analogy. I'm sure that was kind of something.
you
All right,
you just happen to be in there and you're like, I'm gonna voice the overview for this one.
yeah, totally. So I think for the next one, it was just an opportunity to work collaboratively. And I think the weirdest thing about Revenant is that was, I think, the only Warframe that when on a dev stream had like real time dev feedback. So the way dev streams work a lot of the time is in many cases it's a first showing of a team effort to a public audience. So in some cases it's also a first showing to people on the couch. And essentially what happened is the sentient theme really became the predominant talking point after we showed it off on the dev stream rather than the vampire theme, which was totally accurate and true. And ultimately at that point, it became a matter of what can the team do and myself do to make this as sentient as possible. So we, did our and specifically Eidolon because ultimately that was the inspiration. So we really just did our best to make a an Eidolon version of a Revenant Warframe, which is what are Eidolons? They're the walking. They're
Right.
undead. They come out at night only. They're heavily shielded. They can teleport. There's all this crazy shit they can do, and they use lasers. So we were
Mm.
like, hell yeah, we'll do all that. And for me, it was a matter of filling a niche, I think, of a really different type of solo friendly Warframe that could also work on a team without too much of a drawback. And that's kind of where I've seen him fit and where I would continue to balance him in the event that we do changes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear like kind of who has their hands in what warframes and how things are divided up among people.
Yeah, and ultimately we're on our 43rd Warframe, and
Mm.
I can't say too much about the upcoming Warframe, but we made Nova as a community, and the next Warframe will also be made as a community, which we'll be talking about at length for our TennoCon presentation. But I think people are going to be really excited about it because it kind of has that of community creation, and also we are now 7 years more experienced at making Warframes, so we can really bring the community visions to life in a way that, not that Nova wasn't brought to life in
Right.
that way. We just had to make different decisions at the time because that was a 2013 Warframe. So
Right. And I mean, 2013 Warframe things are at least 4 times as wild as that now.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
2013 versus 2020. Yeah.
The amazing thing about Nova is she's really lasted the test of time too. She's still easily one of the best out there.
honestly,
You know what's
like
crazy? This version of Nova we have is the nerfed version.
Oh yeah.
She
Yeah.
used to be so much better.
Old S rank Warframe.
It's so funny to think about, like I guess with the ending of the partner program as well, it gave, like, everyone was reflecting on things that had happened in the past, like, Mirage and the Comb going in and crashing people's games, like just bits and pieces like from over the years. It's been kind of a bit of a memory trip, I think, for a lot of the partners, especially some of the older ones as well.
Speaking of memory lane, kind of just a random topic that I'm interested in. Reb, after having watched all the dev streams and tons of content and all the things, it's become very obvious that you play a monumental amount of Warframe and know like what's what in the community. Shocker, I know. Obviously, that it's partially your job, but clearly you very much love Warframe and know a ton about it. I'd be really curious to know if you're happy with where your kind of favorite Warframes are right now, like Nyx and Revenant and any others, really, with like where kind of the division of power is between these characters and like maybe also weapons and stuff.
I think I really struggle with that question because of what I know the content in the game at present time to be. And I think that, if you look at Warframe as a world to engage in with your favorite characters, you can see how some might be better at that than others. But at the same time, um, shy in writing just put Revenant needs a buff. That is mechanically speaking, that is untrue, and if you understand percent damage, you'll know that
He can do a lot of damage. To me, Revenant just needs to not be boring.
Oh.
Sorry.
Ouch.
Sorry. Just had a little. What were you saying, Reb?
laser ballet isn't for everyone, and that is the fact of life. There's only a few people who. Some people go to cats and love the trippy cats songs with the jellicles, and some people love spinning laser ballerinas. It's not for everyone. It's fine. We can't all have good taste, DK.
It's my cross to bear.
Yes, but so I think for me, with someone that's played as much as I have, and gotten to the point now where I've been playing a game for 8 years that we didn't think was going to last one. I've never been defeated by the idea that a character's place in the meta or a character's place in the public, like the court of public opinion on a character, is a death sentence, nor is it permanent. And I'm always optimistic that we can move things around and give different frames a role to play and ultimately have them function at the level of content we provide. So for me, the shield gating changes we brought upon this year have been a game changer for the squishier frames, especially when we revise their armor and stuff. And that little thing was enough for me to be like, okay, I no longer feel that those Warframes that are on the weaker side of things are a death sentence to play in hard mission types. But I don't know if that's a universal thought.
I would definitely agree that
Definitely
those
true.
squishier Warframes are considerably more accessible.
It's funny, when the shield getting thing came out, I wasn't even thinking about squishier frames. I was just like, oh yeah, Hildy's gonna be so much more buff.
Hildren's incredible now.
Totally. And the biggest problem that Warframe, as a team effort, as a game that's navigating this market, needs to solve is what's the difference between a dead enemy and a CC'd enemy. And that is the only problem that would make every Warframe have a role in some setting. That's it. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, because death is the best crowd control.
Yeah, exactly. The best CC is death.
But it's crazy because in Warframe, they're like, it's not like Nyx is unusable. It's not like Revenant's unusable. It's not like the low meta frames are unusable. They all still work really well. But
Yeah, it's more just a matter of efficiency, and
yeah,
I think the current changes to the balance of weapons are a lot of what has to do with that personally. But I don't know if you would say the same, Reb, if, like, where weapons are currently kind of evens the playing field in a lot of cases between different themes and types of Warframes.
You give a example?
Like, so Nyx doesn't have any, like, huge direct damage really, like, say, as a counterpart, Mesa, tons and tons of direct damage to enemies, huge ability to just, like, kill swaths of enemies. Nyx doesn't really have that very immediate, um, way to go about it. But if you were to give Nyx a Piranha Prime and a maxed out Arcane Pistolier, suddenly Nyx has her invulnerability and also a gun that can shoot forever. So that's
Exactly.
making up the difference between those, at least a good portion.
I totally agree. I think the damage output, like, I mean, we have a lot of conversations about this internally about, like, what should do more damage, a Warframe or their weapons? And you can kind of see that's not a
mm,
straight line. That
yeah.
is a loop, loop, de loop, de loop, de loop.
Oh
Because yeah,
yeah.
like Nyx thematically only deals other people's damage, and that's part of the more spiritual side of Nyx's approach into the game, which is she does not deal direct damage. She lets others do it for her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's there for flavor, it's there for identity, and it's I think you could argue the only Warframe in the game that doesn't deal their own damage, and as a result, in a game where damage matters, yeah, some people really overlook that. But I cheat at this, right? Because I have the stats. I can see what people are doing and aren't using. There's
Mm,
always
Yep.
gonna be a bottom Warframe, and the way to approach this is that the discrepancy between the top and bottom you don't want over a certain threshold, and that's why the
Mhm.
catch moon got treated the way it did, and that's why the Brahma got treated the way it did. And I can
right.
see, yeah, as Shai says, I can see in real time people not using Mag. You know what? Let's see where Mag is.
Ugh. Can we talk
Oh, I
about
love
how
cats.
Mag isn't actually bad,
We
please?
don't
He's
do that,
actually
right?
pretty
Can we?
decent.
I mean, yeah,
Can
she got like 3 rounds of buffs that no one paid attention to, and now she's quite usable.
I mean, her bubble is one of the best damn powers in the game. It's
Is
Plus,
crazy.
plus the shield gating in a
Plus the
3, and
shield gating now. Yeah, it's crazy.
Does it hurt Shai's feelings to know that Mag Prime is more used than Ember Prime by just like 0.1%, thus solidifying that your Ember ideas were trash and Mag is in fact better?
Oh,
I'm actually not entirely surprised by this.
oh,
Yeah,
Connect.
that makes a good deal
man.
of sense.
I feel
Um,
the heat from that burn over here.
so I do have a question relating to stats, as they stand in the current way Warframe is played. Um, I was thinking about this for a while in that obviously D accrues all the stats on, and like you can give it a timeline, and all this data has been recorded. Has there ever been any thought to maybe use that data and integrate it into the game in a way that can maybe help give players some direction? Say you have a player that's just hit MR6 and they have some options opened up to them, and you can see what players who are MR6 have built over whatever amount of time you choose, really, like say the last month or so. Have you thought about using that data and integrating it into the game to be able to give players that are new to the game a way to go, what should I do? And then be able to look at a list and be like, well, a bunch of people built this. That probably seems like a good idea to maybe help give people goals for what others are doing.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, and I think about it in the sense of trying to give that direction in the early game, because I think even the quest exposure, it could be improved quite a bit in terms of reminding people that if you do these things, you will indirectly complete a campaign in Warframe, like a single player story. So, and we don't even expose that enough. And as a direct consequence of that exposure, giving people these gear suggestions is incredibly wise, because at some point in time, someone might pick up a difficult frame to master too early, which could sour their impression. And I've always wondered, could we get away with doing a difficulty class system in game for our Warframes? Like, is there even a place for that in Warframe to imply that, like, this champion is 1-star difficulty to master?
Mm.
Whereas, like, I see it in some of the more competitive games and the ones I've tried to play. They basically tell you, like, yep, you'll good beginner frame versus bad beginner frame.
I
Yeah.
think there's a place in Warframe for that.
I
'Cause I don't
agree.
know. I think
Yeah.
anybody that's done YouTube or Twitch can attest to the fact that somebody new will come to the game and they'll be like, I don't really know much. What's a good starter frame for me? What can I start off with that's easy to get, easy to master?
Mhm.
And I feel like if the Warframes had their own distinct difficulty levels, or even difficulty to obtain levels based on where they are on the star chart, how hard you have to farm them, that would actually be really useful and really handy.
I fully agree with that. And the only thing that I would say that is troublesome for that type of approach is that how difficult a Warframe is to use is usually a direct influence on how hard it is to get the tools they need and their mods to make them
Oh, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
to make
true.
them powerful. Because like if you were for the best example I think of this is that I would tell any new player playing Warframe to go get Rhino. I would say he is a 0-star difficulty
Yeah.
because he is the easiest Warframe to get. He's the first one you're even like you can possibly get from your starting point in the game,
Mhm.
and he takes no mods to be totally fine for like at least like the first 5 planets or so.
Yeah.
And that's like really hard to quantify. And I think that the only way you could really quantify that across all the warframes would be to have some way to normalize like what drops where and knowing what players are definitely going to have access to at any given point. And that is a task that is just extremely large in my
Monumental,
opinion.
yeah.
But I could be wrong here.
You're right. I mean, you have to like basing any decision like this on assumptions of endo and credit and all of those things because we know it's not that simple.
Right.
Yeah.
We know there are blockers of power, blockers of progression in terms of
Mhm.
having the um, you know currencies in terms of actually progressing in your warframe strength journey. So yeah, I mean like you originally kind of suggested that what the data could tell us about what a mastery rank 6 player is doing and all these things, and any free chance I get to look at these things I do, because there was even a recent conversation about mastery rank tests and how that impacts someone's ability to come back to the game, because why are there so many complaints about the mastery rank 9 test, and what is the actual failure rate of a test relative to the rest? And you have to look at all of these things in a more holistic view, because if you ask yourself thematically and spiritually, a mastery rank test is designed to be failed in some points because they have to
Mhm.
prove they've mastered it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being someone of high MR, it becomes the case where you can just kind of form a weapon, and the weapon is pretty much functional. Like it's got like its base mods on it, and you can do the content you would regularly do with it. But whenever you form a warframe, even though you get all of those mod points, you are not getting any of your abilities because those are tied to your actual level as it stands currently. So all warframes that you're leveling, even at a high MR, really boil down to being built similar to a Naros, where they're just like a big meat sack and not really the warframe that they are. Do you think there would be any changes to MR in that way, where you would maybe get access to the abilities you would have based on your MR? Because I think that would really smooth out the progression for people trying to form, even if they're just MR 10, because a lot of warframes revolve around their fourth ability being their thing.
I had this conversation very, very, very recently, and for the life of me, I won't remember exactly who was involved, but there was a case we saw, which was basically the feedback you just gave, which was, should abilities still be locked out at the way we do it? And there was a big discussion about it, and now it's going to be one of those things where we have to bring the discussion up again and see, what's changed in our minds between when we first had it and now. And like, yeah, I think those are that's like the status quo nature of Warframe. It's like it doesn't have to be that way. It can be changed, and we probably should change it, but it's a matter of when do we have the resources to do so,
Hmm.
when we have the product that we do. And I'm totally down for that change, and I'll totally advocate for it. And it will just be a matter of, do we have a specific list of what would need to change, what it would affect, and a human being to actually make the change in a reasonable time frame. So let's take this idea that we just talked about, that warframes retain their abilities, even at the base rank, even if it's the rank 0 version of the abilities on Forma. That idea has been floated around for probably 5 years, I would say. I remember having conversations about creators in the creator program with this, and nothing was done. It was a good idea. We all discussed it and liked it. But one thing that I see happen in the community, in the partner community, former partner community, is it's not good enough for us to do something that's been asked for a long time, because why didn't we do it when it was brought up the first time? So for you guys, as people that have either advocated for these feedback things or brought them up, how do you feel knowing that we didn't get around to doing it when it was first brought up, and we may misattribute credit, or we may um like all of those things, because those are real these are things that happen. So I'm just curious about what you think about that.
Wait, so
Hey,
there are
but, like,
people that get upset because you do something, but they think you were too late in doing it and you should have done it when it was first brought up?
I can't tell if
Like-
you're being facetious, because that happens
Like
literally.
Shy,
Well, no,
Shy
it's just
says, like, who says that? Like,
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
get it either.
I haven't. I don't think I've really come up with like I don't think I've heard that, because if there is, like, say for that one mainline update when a ton of stuff that had been asked for a while had been done, my first thought wasn't, why didn't you do that 4 years ago? My thought was, thank God it's finally here. Thank God it was implemented. I'm so happy this is here. So, not necessarily trying to be facetious, I just haven't heard that line before, and I haven't. I mean,
So-
I'm not doubting that you've heard it a great deal, but I just, like I said, I haven't really heard it before.
So
It's
for
like-
for my part, I hear this all the time. Constantly I hear this where a change will go in and I'll be like, "Oh, yes, that happened. I'm so happy this is finally a thing." Like fetch, or like a fetch essentially being like the solution to the UNIVAC discussion and stuff like that, and all
Oh,
these other
sure.
things. I hear it very often that it's like, "Oh, they should have just done this months ago." And I think that, like, those people are they're part of that. There is a portion of the community that they're just going to be unhappy even when something good happens, like something purely good, like fetch being a mod that's included, or like just a raw positive change, like what just recently happened, where like it was great. I mean, this is obviously very specific to me, but I put out a video like, hey, these stance mods, it would really improve the new player experience if they were available on like these locations, and like just in the most recent update, they are there. Even if it had been 2 years from now and that happened, I'd still be like, oh, good. That's very good for new players. I'm very happy to see that. But some people, even whenever like I like just said a thing, because it took a week, those people are going to be like, oh, why didn't it happen the day of? Like, there's some part of it that's like the deep seated unhappiness from some people is just going to be there, and it's really unfortunate. But I don't know if there's a ton to be done about it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had I'm glad we have a diverse field of opinions on this, because I see all of these opinions all the time. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's really difficult to focus on the greater good for all of the work and improvements that need to be done in Warframe, because I do often find I need to come up with a way to be even more transparent with our processes, so people can see that we're not, like, that adding something late isn't bad or isn't inherently malicious and all these things. And yeah, it's a really complicated operation. And I think ultimately it comes down to, you can tell the difference between someone who's worked on a team and someone who never has, because the people that have never worked on a team um, cannot empathize with the fact that this is a team created product. And that means that nothing can be instant all the time and fixed overnight,
Right.
Right. Like it's not like a lot of those things where you have a single guy working on this and he gets a single complaint. He's like, "Oh, I can do that real quick." Like some people, like whenever it's a large company, it's like, who's in charge of even potentially fixing this? Like, because like some things are just hard to categorize even.
Oh yeah, or are they on maternity leave? Or
Yeah, well, yeah.
like,
Sure,
are
sure.
they like, these things happen, and it's not like we're ever gonna go on a dev stream and be like, oh yeah, this person's really sick right now.
Yeah.
So don't. Hopefully, you guys don't have too many feedback requests for XYZ. Like, the team
Mhm.
the team takes the blows, the team takes the punches, and we deliver as a team. So that's always a weird dynamic. I think Shy in writing just put, I think the most recent example was the whole Lich kills player code failure. We complained, Steve said no, and eventually it was changed. A lot of people were annoyed with how resistant DE seemed to be that change, but we welcomed it. No one was upset by it. And I mean, my professional judgment on that scenario is I saw people upset. It's like,
There are people upset that the Liches didn't kill people, or just
Yeah, well,
how resistant then the initial response to it was.
So there were people upset about the Lich no longer killing them on failure. And so I'm a devil's advocate a little bit here. I fully disagree with the thing that I am about to say because it is fully stupid to think this, I think.
Devil's advocate moment. Sure.
But the thing was that there was a large part of the community that like felt a certain way about like how they were killing you and did not enjoy just being killed on trying to succeed, right? And having no win condition really, because the Liches were like a guess-based system, right?
Okay.
But then the other portion of the people that were angry about that were angry that people wanted DE to change their original design philosophy to suit the people that wanted it to be a different way. So they weren't really angry about the change. They were angry that other people wanted change. And that ends up, I think, being like angry that it got changed at all. And it's super difficult because like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
But it is a road that I've seen a lot of people go down.
That is quite the little circle to run in.
Yeah, but essentially, what happened, like from a professional point of view, about what is that? Like, how do you quantify that phenomenon in a way that either inhibits me from doing my job or helps? Like, how do I do this? So basically, what happens is I have to acknowledge that it's an accretion of bad will, so to speak, because the internet never forgets, and there's a record being kept that always emerges of what did we do wrong this time. And I have to be aware of that list to hope that as we're developing content or changing things, that we don't repeat the objective mistakes, I guess, from a game content point of view. But I also need to be aware that some people have that ready for every conversation, regardless of what the conversation is about. Like someone will say the words Warframe, and then someone will say, oh, well, did you know this? It doesn't matter what the context of the signifying word is, Warframe. What matters is that people out there are prepared with this sort of, fault bingo, I suppose, to bucket everything into this prepared list of bad decisions we've made, which is their prerogative. And I'm not judging that way of interacting online, but as a professional, I just need to be aware of what obstacles there may be in working on a game I love, and that's one of them.
I think there's also, and feel free to tell me if I'm incorrect on this, I think there is a considerable subset of players that are, I think, often hard to identify that talk a lot about Warframe, but are not players anymore.
Hate playing. Welcome to hate play. I kind of talked about that, but yes, you're right. Like, hate playing is a thing in online games in 2020 very much.
Like, yeah, Shy's giving us the shifty eyes in chat, and I'm not sure why when you brought up hate playing that she's suddenly
explain yourself, Shy.
Define
hate playing, Shy. Do define. You will.
Every game on Shy's channel that is not Warframe.
No, even Warframe. Give me a break.
Warframe. But she's fair. She hates everything with,
equally hateful. It's. I mean, I would be offended if you didn't hate play Warframe at this point. It would be so off-brand. Yeah, you're being interviewed now, Shy. Define hate play, please.
Yeah, yes, Shy. You're being interrogated now. This isn't an interview. This is an interrogation.
Okay, we're not going to read that out.
All right,
we're going to move on.
Moving right along.
So really, because for me, I will until my children and my grandchildren tell me to shut the hell up. I'll be like, The Witcher. I love The Witcher, and then they'll be like, well, when was the last time you even played it? And I'll say, I don't know, 2017. And then they'll be like, what? You haven't played in 3 years and you still love it? And it's like, hell yeah. But you have the opposite effect with games you hate play too, right? Like, people could still be like, oh, I haven't played Warframe since 2017, but fuck that game. And then you're like, what?
And Rebecca, you could just tell me if you think this also rings true, where a game comes out and like it releases and you're like, oh, game bad. and the difference between that and someone who played a game for 4 years and then now thinks game bad.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a bit it's hard. It
Mhm.
is what I can say. It's a very hard phenomenon to deal with because it's not simple. Like it's not as simple as game come out, reviews poor, people agree, goodbye. Like
Right.
that exactly is what you just stated. And in the case of a game like ours, people come and go. And again, this kind of goes to the creator situation where it's like, yeah, we want people to come and go as they please without inducing burnout and stress. And I think that's something that as a company we need to apply beyond the creator program. We need to ensure that like players know how to manage their time with the game to not get to rank, like if they want to get to rank 30 in Nightwave as of Sunday, good for them, that's their choice to do it, but they need to know
Mhm.
that you don't have to do that. You can come back in a month and a half, 2 months, you'll always be able to catch up. There's no reason to fear that.
Like, there's the implementation, like, the changes to Nightwave to, like, introduce the catch-up system and have it be better, definitely makes it so that people can just come back later. If they're tired of doing the Nightwave now, maybe they'll wanna do it in a month, and, like, that's super valid. And then on top of that, the recent addition of the kind of cycle of notes you can go through that was a very recent addition where you can see, like, this is the Protea launch. This happened. Player can see this now, and you hit previous, and it's like, this big thing launched. Um, those being included in the game, just in general, so someone can like hit previous until they see something they recognize, I think is going to really improve helping to let people know what they missed while they were gone.
Yes, thank you. I've this is my baby, and this is a very something that I thought was very important for 2020 review of Warframe. Like people, like one of the most common things I see is I don't know where I when I left off and what I have to do next.
Mhm.
So the previous
Yep.
button is yes, it's my baby.
I've gotten that a lot in streams. Someone will come back and be like, "Man, I haven't played in 2 years. Where should I start and what's new?" And it's just like, oh boy,
Yes.
I don't know what to tell you exactly. I also think it's great that the creator program, not to go into it specifically, but one of the things is it's easier to leave and re-enter. So if somebody does feel like, man, I'm not really playing Warframe right now, they don't have to like burn themselves out thinking like, oh my god, if I don't play this week, I'm going to lose my partnership and there's no getting it back and I'm going to have to go through this process again. So I think making it really easy to leave and then jump back in takes a lot of that pressure off people, and it should help with well, at least creator burnout, I suppose.
Hmm.
Just out of curiosity, I guess of the four people in this call, or even other people how much do you lean on content creation as your livelihood versus a hobby?
Oh, it's that's literally my whole job. Streaming slash YouTube is my full thing.
It's weird. It's um it's essentially my job, but
Do you sell watches out of the back of a truck?
well, it's a jacket that I open up.
Okay, okay.
Um, but I have other responsibilities that I don't get paid for. So kind of my job, but I also have other shit that I have to take care of. So
Okay.
I mean, mine's mostly a hobby now, working a full-time job. So
Yeah, because I always feel the role the devs of games play in someone making that decision is so huge because again, this goes back to if you were on Mixer and now something you don't control has impacted your livelihood. It's the same with, Warframe. And if the devs are having something going on, that means you're not going to get a big content drop in 4 months, but you based your livelihood around it. Like I feel so responsible for people that make that decision because I would say with the best of advice, and that's what the creator program is going to be hopefully pretty explicit about is cover what you want to cover and play what you want to play, but at
mhm,
the end of the day, like making this game at this rate is quite the task. It's very
oh
hard,
yeah,
there's a lot of work that goes into it, and you'll never really be in control of a month of dev time to have them make exactly the type of content you want to play. So how do you balance that when you have no idea if our next update is going to be a month, 2 months away? Is
mhm,
it going to be 3 months away? Is it going to be 2 hours of content? Is it going to be 30 hours? Like, it's just, how do you
yeah.
plan for that? How the hell do you plan for that?
Literally, this is the exact reason why I've started to branch into doing more variety stuff. not that I dislike Warframe, but it got to the point where I was like, the dev cycle obviously needs more time. And it's not going to be a weekly thing. It's not going to be like, oh, look, there's a Warframe and 3 weapons out this month. It takes more time than that. I need to be ready for if that happens, or if there is a really long period of time where there is no Warframe and I have to come up with something besides Warframe.
Yeah, for my part, I've been for a long time, I think now, doing a lot of other games on the streaming side of my things and branching out here and there on the YouTube side. And none of that has ever meant that I'm not playing Warframe. It usually just means that I've caught up, because myself and a good chunk, at least, of other players, whenever I log into the game today, I've done everything except for the last bit of the Nightwave here. When I say I've done everything, I mean I legitimately have every single mod in the game. All the things. I've collected all the items, I've maxed out my master rank, and there shouldn't, I think, in a lot of ways, be a thing for me to do, because I've played for somewhere, if you manage Steam time and in-game time, somewhere between 4 to 10,000 hours I've put into Warframe, and that's just an amount of like content devouring. There's no design studio, even if you combined them all, that can realistically make enough content to sate that amount of play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I respect that you acknowledge it's not possible, because I fear the conversations we may need to be having a bit more outwardly about, some of you have caught up with us. Come back when there's more to catch up with. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with us saying that as a studio. And I actually read a really insightful remark from, I believe it was a Ubisoft developer, who expressed a sentiment. I forget what the context was, but basically said, games as a service that don't provide a clear endpoint for an expansion or DLC have communities that feel afraid to leave because they don't know if they've achieved what the dev has set out for them to do. And I think that is something that we see a lot in our game. Without clear, endpoints for expansion or whatnot, if you could call what we do expansions, people are afraid to leave because they don't know if they've actually beat everything we've offered. So we're trying to get in a better habit of, having those clear end goals, like completing a quest, earning gear, completing a Nightwave week series. Those are all very obvious completion benchmarks for a given time of play. Like, even just bringing up the old alert system, whether you liked it or didn't like it, that you never could feel like you completed it because you didn't have transparency into what it offered unless you metagamed and were online at all times. So
Right.
there was never you couldn't know what you were missing out on. Whereas with Nightwave, that's not the case. It tells you every week what you have, and you can play or skip.
That sentiment that like there should be an endpoint even for games that are like lifestyle games like Warframe and others, I've seen echoed by like the Path of Exile devs, and also Where about Final Fantasy 14. Those games, like, they just come out and say, like, for FF14 as an example, like, oh yeah, we know people are going to finish the content and then drop their subs. Come back when we drop the next thing. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a very healthy way of navigating it, and that I think will be even with like the last update button and stuff, will be demonstrated in our approach to these types of things across all languages and all our platforms, just kind of explaining what a given update offers and contained to that very update.
Yeah.
Chai said you can add some kind of collection screen where it shows everything that you can earn this update, so people can follow this checklist and maybe get some kind of minor reward to filling it out completely, maybe like a glyph.
If you ever do any of the like Division 2 stuff, like they do have collections, and if you get all the collections, you get an additional like item from that. So yeah, that would definitely be kind of cool.
I've heard a lot of really good stuff about how the Division handles those types of things, so I feel like I need to play it, but I'm always like adding more games to enjoy and see like what do they do that's really cool and awesome. Hence my absolute addiction with Final Fantasy 14 online.
If you ever play the Division 2 ribbon system, similar to the way they do the recalibration in Division, just saying.
Oh really?
It is actually very, very similar.
I will have to look into that on off air time, but damn, okay.
Time to put down Final Fantasy 14 and start.
Well, actually, this is so crazy because we started talking about this at the beginning of the this conversation when you were like, "Oh, I noticed you're streaming Final Fantasy." I'm actually at the point now where I'm not progressing in the game because I feel bad doing it off stream because people really wanted to see me fight that primal. So
right.
Oh,
I haven't.
that's the streamer life right
Yeah,
there.
welcome to the streamer guild.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm like, fuck, because like I've had so much time to play, but I haven't had time to stream. So I'm like, guess
How
I'm
does
not
it
fighting
feel,
that.
Rebecca? How does it feel? It
Difficult
sucks,
balance.
doesn't it?
It's kind of amazing to go back and look at some of the early dev streams. Like, is that something that gets done occasionally, or?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yes, I do
all,
that.
all the time. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, dev streams they've been around for better part of going into 8 years now, and I think when we originally started doing them, they were to Shy. You have made the most horrifying compilations of all time. But it's crazy to me that we still get the opportunity to do them, and I don't know, man. Like I really think that they are such a joy to do and put together, but I also the pressure with each subsequent stream has gotten so much more excessive in terms of delivering just like a chill chat stream or organized or this or that. Yeah, they are the double-edged sword of our process for sure.
You
Yeah,
know what's
but
Does it get to
crazy?
the stage? Does it get to the stage where you like are intentionally trying not to say things on the dev stream because because of the reactions and
Yeah, to a degree. I'm not sure if we've like intentionally censored ourselves. The only stuff we've ever done is held content back for a more polished demo, I would say, or a more interesting demo. So, like, obviously, like what we'll be doing at TennoCon this year, we have chosen not to show all year for good reason.
right, because you want the intent is for it to be a big old surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Shy said Devstream Bridge is probably the most popular content on her channel. And you say that. You say I have literally had times where I would stream. Unfortunately, I was streaming during the dev stream. And I'll in stream I'll be like, yo, I get it. If you guys want to go out to the dev stream, that's fine. And I will have several people be like, nah, I'll just wait for Shy's abridged.
I even wait for the abridged videos.
And it's like,
so do I.
jeez. But on a more serious note, how's Digital TennoCon coming? Because I mean, obviously, it's a shame that we all can't be in Canada, but with Corona and everything, it was the only thing you could do. So how is the setup for that? Like how different is the setup? Because obviously, there's no stage, there's no big arena. Is it just going to be in the dev stream area? Is it just going to be sort of like an extendo dev stream or?
Yeah, I think it'll be a combination of all of those challenges in a safe way because we have certain, like Ontario is in different phases, so we're able to do different things with different groups. So if we start, first week of July picking who will be allowed to be together, who has to quarantine when, we can likely achieve a group couch situation, but we just need to make sure that no one in that group does anything for 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after, depending
Right.
on what the rules are. So we're trying to work toward that. And yeah, I think it's going to be, wait, Shy's dissing the streams. That's fine. That's fine. But like for real, like there's no reason. Okay, so I'll answer your question first. It's going well, and I'm really excited for it because some of the best things about working on this game and with this team is being able to share what we're doing, and we haven't been able to do that a whole lot in quarantine. So that's sucked. But at the other side of it, like sometimes we share what we're doing in a habitual way of 7 years of dev stream format. And yeah, I wonder, like, should we just throw the whole thing on its head and just do 10-minute video updates, like state of the game every 2 weeks? On the one hand, that would completely destroy Shy's channel, which is a great benefit. So I think we should do that. And on the other,
Get fucked.
Oh,
can't have a channel if there's no cringe compilation, my dear. Sorry to say it. You heard it here first. But
Oof.
it would probably make what we're doing a bit more accessible if we did like a 10-minute, state of the dev studio every 2 weeks. So I don't know. It's challenging to know what should change and what shouldn't, what status quo should be messed with and what is fine as is. That was the thesis of this talk, really. Why change the partner program? Why change all this? And yeah.
I've always really I think the dev streams did something kind of maybe like wider than is maybe initially obvious in that I think it inspired a lot of other dev studios to be more public in the way that the dev streams are and to like do their own dev streams. And while I don't think that I've seen one that's like comparably informative and like brings actual like new things to the fold most of the time, I think it positively influenced kind of the whole this whole sphere of at least like the free to play scene where it's like, oh, the devs can just say what they're working on and people really like whenever they know that something's coming. Which I think has been positive for like the dev streams just to have existed just for I think the sake of like Warframe being around, right? Like I think it's positive to know it's like, oh no, they're working on this next thing, and that's awesome.
It's also been fairly like industry leading because I don't think before Warframe did it, I don't think many companies did, but since then it's gone on to inspire like State of the Game with the Division and things like that, and I'm glad that it's been able to continue throughout the lockdown as well. It's been good to see everyone at home still actually working on the game that they love as well, and I low-key once got struck, just saying.
Right, you get to see a little side of our home life. I think like in the scheme of things, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where my headspace is on this, but I do think that we were one of the first studios to do dev streams the way that we do them, and I'm really proud of that. And I think it's done a lot to humanize devs to people, but it's also incited a lot of anxiety, I think. And doing it from home has been a really weird journey because it's a very formal invitation into my house, which is something that didn't really exist before. How do we navigate that space? Because at work, it's so easy to decouple from the day when you're done and you can go home and it's a different space, but the physical aspect of being in the house doing those things is interesting because it makes it all a bit more personal, if they could possibly have gotten any more personal. But I love doing them, and I always try and have something cool to show, but sometimes we really do have big gaps in what's showable. And I think you can tell when we're in dev streams like that, but that I don't think that should be a point against us. Which it has been in the past. It's just a matter of this is what it's like, folks.
So we're gonna talk about Twitch drops.
Well, we don't have to.
I would love to talk about that.
I think we should because we again were one of the first devs to do them. And that's because we had a history and we wanted to work on the prototype tools that our streaming partners were working on. So we did them, we implemented them. Obviously things on Twitch haven't been the same since. A lot of much bigger games have gotten a much more vitriolic exposure than our little slice of the Warframe community with how drops are handled. But talk about them holistically. Let's hear it.
Well, so
if I'm being honest, I feel like this is a very similar conversation to what we were saying about glyphs. The implementation of it wasn't a terrible idea, and it was wholly made to help us get viewers and help us grow. But little did anyone realize just how fervently people would just go after the drops and how much of a problem that would necessarily be. Because I mean, of course, when you first implement the drops, there's going to be issues. It's like the first time any of us ever dealt with drops. Okay. But yeah, then when it gets to sort of being that thing where it's like, again, people will just show up, get dropped, leave, and it's just, it feels very similar to the glyphs to me.
I would just want to know if overall, Reb, if you think that drops were a positive thing for the overall Twitch community for just Warframe.
For just Warframe?
Like just in terms of how it affected Warframe and not like how it's affected Twitch on the whole, because there's lots of ways it was way worse. Like with how it had been implemented, I think. But if you think that the drops overall positively influenced like just the Twitch directory for Warframe.
I'd have to look at this question in the context of when we chose to debut them and what the game was going through at that time. I think and I have access to all this, and you can kind of infer this from whatever public stuff is available. But the Plains of Eidolon announcement and subsequent launch also being tied to a Twitch drops debut, I don't think the game would be as successful as it was without that partnership. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, but I know it had bad consequences for people because it was such a new concept to everyone. Like, what are drops?
Mhm.
How do they work? But I know just based on the data I have that the drops presence did allow the Plains of Eidolon update to reach more people than if we didn't have drops, which
Right.
ultimately helped Warframe as a game in that 2017 period. Because basically everything I have, everything I've ever looked at, and when you look at Warframe and its composition, it's basically before and after the Plains of Eidolon launch. Like those are the two different strata of existence of the game.
I think from a content creator perspective, I think we've probably seen that from the other side as well. But the whole before and after the Plains of Eidolon, it's definitely a very different beast.
It was such a burst of popularity, and the drops helped a lot with like the notoriety of just like the game. It's like, oh, that is a thing, and it brought a lot of attention to it. Um, for I mean that like the residual effects of that are still ongoing. Um, and I think drops were or are currently an overall really positive part of like that of the Warframe Twitch directory. But I think that original implementation maybe did some damage
Oh,
overall
yes.
to the Twitch
Yes.
directory in terms
Yeah.
of
Yes, it did.
in terms of just like the honestness with which it could be interacted with, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It was a oh, sorry. I don't want to dismiss any problems it had, but I can like you can certainly look at the times in which we've launched campaigns and what's that done. But yeah, I think the drops falters and the issues they've created definitely still linger to this day. And even, we have gone to basically stop doing them except for on our own streams because of what it did. So in the same way, like, we're getting rid of glyphs and we're only doing them case by case now.
Yeah.
Drops are part of that conversation as well and how we'll be moving forward with them.
I don't know how hard this would be to implement or how unrealistic of a goal it would be. But had Warframe ever considered doing something like a Twitch integration? Like with
Oh.
stuff that like Immortal Redneck had or Vermintide 2 had, where the viewer literally has a say in what's going on in the game, and they're sort of voting on modifiers, boss spawns, or causing something sort of ludicrous to happen as a way to sort of get the viewer involved and make
Yeah.
it so it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here for 2 minutes, get my drop.
Yeah, we have looked into that. Nothing has come of it, obviously, but
Right.
we have
Well,
looked
yeah.
into it. Wait, you didn't know we did that already?
I must have been out. Jeez.
Well, has there been any recent discussion around upgrading or or changing the Warframe API so that people that make Twitch extensions would be able to get more information from the game, a la extensions that are used for like Destiny or like various card games and stuff that tell the watchers what the streamer is using currently? Because I,
Ooh.
I I personally find that one of the major things that I get asked always, and the thing that people are ravenous for, is what are you using to do that?
Yep.
And like that's been a big question
Yeah.
that I see in every single chat, no matter who it is. Doesn't matter if they played for 2 minutes or 5 hours or 5,000 hours. That's the predominant information
What's the
people
build?
want.
So
So
what's your build?
yeah, well, yeah. What's your build? What are you using? And I think it'd be really, really good for just like the Twitch directory in general if the API was able to at least give out the data, not necessarily have like the extension itself be developed by DE or anything, but just have that data available for people that create those extensions to be able to utilize and make one for Warframe.
If you knew what I was looking at on my second monitor right now. Yes, we are
Wow.
actively looking into that.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
That's great news,
Nice.
yeah.
It is a very different type of development for us. If you look at our, the size of our studio and what we can achieve in-house, we are looking into ways to provide that for streamers. And I'm very optimistic we'll have a fantastic update on that this year, maybe soon.
Ooh.
Any kind of a plan, what with a lot of like the UI changes and stuff that we've been seeing to implement those that type of information into the game a little bit more readily, such as whenever you go to the star chart, having a search bar there, like we have in other places where it's extremely useful, where you could just type in, "Hey, I need Axie D5s," and it's like, "Oh, they drop in these locations," and it just like shows
Right.
you where these things are. I think that'd be really
Yeah.
useful just for an accessibility on like, "Hey, I want to farm the Piranha Prime," and it's like, "Well, you can get the things that drop those here."
Yeah.
Right. So instead of the codex being the gatekeeper for that, it's actually
The star
Yeah,
chart.
and even beyond that, just the accessibility of like, "Hey, I need to do 3 exterminate missions for my Nightwave," and then just being able to type into that search bar, "Exterminate Mercury," and it just is like, "Oh, that's this node," and just like really simplifying the way that we get into those missions instead of like
right. Right.
the sort of hunt and peck that we can experience um on the star chart currently. Like just making
Yeah, I'm trying to think like my best educated guess for how you would integrate a search bar on the star chart because all of the properties for what you would be wanting to search is there. There's just no organized list of it, whereas all the other menus are list based
mm,
and the star chart is, diegetic. So
at least having like some kind of a search bar where it's like, "Hey, I'd like to know where condition overload drops," and it can be like this tile set on these nodes. Like if it just like pops up a list of it's like these are on Neptune and
oh
just
right, like where
just
yeah.
yeah. But it's obviously like very difficult to get like that vast amount of information into the game in a way that's concise and searchable. But I think it would cut down on what I hear is a major complaint a lot, which is that like Warframe is a wiki game for a lot of people.
I would
Yeah.
like to point your attention to Final Fantasy 14 Online,
Oh
which
yeah,
presents me with a wiki when I log in.
yes it does. It certainly does.
And I'm like, "Damn, this is complicated." I'm like,
At
"I
least they
caught
at
it."
least they own it.
They own it, and I
They
love it.
do.
They do. And it's like, "Would you like to load Lodestone?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I would, because I have no idea what I'm about to do."
Talking of accessibility, though, Steve definitely deserves a beer for working on the colorblind stuff.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw that on his
Oh,
Twitter the other
Mm.
day, and I was so happy.
that sweet soul. It's definitely a long time coming. And I mean, this would be one of those cases, and we spoke about this earlier, where people are mad that we haven't done something quick enough. This would be the one exception to the rule of don't get mad at a DE for finally doing something. We should have done it a long time ago. And that is the one exception to that sort of conversation of why didn't we do this earlier? And that I would totally take with I would accept that you would feel that way in this case.
Yeah, I've definitely been talking about it for quite a while.
Exactly. So this would be
So
the other side of that coin, which is, well,
Mm.
you
yeah,
really should have done that earlier or done it better, or because I mean, we did the whole locker changes, but it just wasn't holistic enough. It
Yeah.
was piece.
Yeah, there's been the like, "Hey, this is a huge problem for people who are colorblind," and it's like, "Oh, we will fix that," but then never like a more systemic change.
Yeah, and I
like
mean,
I still can't really fish in the
yep,
Valis because I can't see the Valis hotspots at all.
it's
They're
in the
just
queue.
invisible.
It's there. There was a like we've had the data, and we worked with a party consultant as well on like someone that's job is dedicated to those pain points. So it's all here. It's all in the books, and it's just a matter of implementing them.
I don't. Is there any update on the new player cinematic or the new
Oh,
player
Oh,
rework or
kind
Mag's
of.
augment?
Kind of, yes. They're on my routine list of status checks and making sure everything's squared out. I think there were a couple complications with uh, with that in terms of revealing it almost a year ago now and it not being in game yet. But I mean, hopefully it's one of those things that when we add it, it will be like finally they added the thing they were going to add. But I don't have too much to say about it except part of the routine is ensuring it's done in a way that's actually objectively beneficial to the new player
Mhm.
experience and not just a coat of paint on a cinematic. So there's a lot of
Sure.
systems that go into that.
so as long as we were just talking about more general things, I do have a kind of question that has been brewing basically since we saw the Granum Void stuff for the first time, where the Granum Void is very evocative of like Diablo riffs and those types of things to me, like that type of content. Do you think that we would see a kind of expansion across the other tile sets of that variety of content, such as, let's say, for example, on Eris, there's like a toxin nest or something where it's like an extra area you can go and do for unique rewards, or do you think that the Granum Void is probably more of a one and done thing that ties into the lore more directly?
I would be hopeful to see it explored deeper. personally, like I know what's in progress and I know what isn't in progress, but I think that when you look at the way our procedural levels are done, having a second optional content stream is actually a really sustainable way for us to keep the game feeling fresh, because you can ride on our existing systems of procedural levels and you can give players more choice within each mission, which I just think is a great position to be in.
The only thing that I've seen so far is that, um, and I think you've mentioned this before, that the rewards from the Granum Void at kind of all tiers are not super sustainable as it stands currently.
They aren't, and I think all of you have brought this up, I think. But and honestly, I love that the podcast is going in this direction, because the absolute number one problem in Warframe is evergreen rewards, and it has just been impossible for us to solve this in a way that doesn't feel like we're making old mistakes.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, like from my desk last week, it was evergreen reward conversation, docs, this, that, and it's something that it coincides very strongly with uh, replayable content as well. Because if you have those two together, you have this kind of harmonious, like, play the content in an evergreen fashion to earn an evergreen reward. And we just don't have that yet. You can
Hmm.
get, like, you can complete your collection, as you mentioned. But what is it? Like, I honestly don't know. And I've read and I've asked and I've explored, and it's just like, what is the tier of goods that actually are evergreen, and how do you put that in the Grand and Void, and how do you innovate in that regard? Because yes, you can put Forma and Endo in there, and that's fine, but that's not gonna last forever either.
In the case of farms like Nidus and Goss and the new Granum Voids and stuff, we have rewards that are only good once or twice, essentially. And what I mean by that is that once you get all of the Goss blueprints and you build them, you now have a Goss. So, the thing that I've always thought would be good would be to, if you were to roll another Goss helmet, there would instead be a like replacement reward where if you already have a blueprint, you get something else. And in the case of the Granum Void, like if you already have the Mortis shoulders in from like the tier 3, you would instead get 600 endo in that slot, which can like potentially double the amount of endo that you're getting from that and make it like very worthwhile. If you've completed the farm, even still, it's still making it worthwhile to just keep going. And then that affecting like all the things across the star chart and helping to populate those missions, where like the Nidus mission I think is extremely good. I'm a big fan of infested salvage actually as a mission type,
Yep.
but I don't do it because Nidus has a really, really good drop rate there. Like he makes up about 45% of the C rotation there. And because that reward doesn't do anything for me, if those free rewards were simply replaced with like, oh, you roll a relic instead, then I would see that mission as like a very viable spot to farm relics in.
Sure.
Has there been
Right.
like thoughts on like replacement rewards for those things that are only good once or twice, and ways to implement that, such as like you have a Goss blueprint, so you get something else, so that you can allow someone to build multiple Goss if they so desire, because then they'll get that again to be able to farm more, but won't get it again if they've already got one they can use, I suppose.
There's a technical structure that our rewards follow, which is they're server authoritative and they don't check the client for certain things in the process of actually distributing a reward. So I don't really know how feasible it is to do conditional drops determined by our actual drop tables in real time. I think there is a place for that. I just don't know how easy or hard it is to actually hook up.
Right.
But
Mhm.
because that's always the problem with conditional rewards is there's a couple cases in Warframe where conditional rewards are hooked up. Like pigment drop tables, pigments only drop if you have a condition that they should drop.
Right.
But an existing drop doesn't change to something else. It's always in addition to. So I mean, there's a like the easy way to do this is in addition to that you get something else. But I don't actually.
Mhm.
I'd have to ask our much smarter programmers on how that would even work, because we've always had, like, there's always security risks in drop tables. Like trusting the client is rarely
Right.
good advice in
Yeah.
a free to play game, but there is a place for something like that. I think I just don't know how easy it would be to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's what okay. So we replace it with relics, and I don't know. Like, don't you think that there's something out there that we haven't thought of that is like a great evergreen reward. I feel so strongly that there's something that is sustainable to drop places that is appealing to closer to end game players that we just are not able to put into an item. Like what thinking needs to go into what that is for players to feel motivated to play different content types.
I'm not generally looking for the place that the only place that drops this. I'm looking for the best place that drops this. Like, so let's say for the Granum Void. If the Granum Void, if I have all of the unique rewards for it, and say that all the rewards in the C rotation, I have them all, and once that happens, I'm always gonna receive 600 endo from the C rotation of that, right? If I like based on like the time I put in to getting that, if it's like, oh well, that's 600 endo and that's a really good rate, then like I want to do that. Like how we have Vodunoi right now on Sedna. Vodunoi is by far the number one place to get endo. It is the fastest endo farm by a country mile, and nowhere else can compete with it. But it's also really demanding in terms of the group you need to put together to do that. And having a place that is really good endo value at a pretty fast rate, and you're pretty like fluid with whatever you bring to that, and you can just succeed compared to the hard farm. It's like the very difficult balance of the rewards being worth like the amount of effort put in, and especially catered to where that's located in like overall like player progression, I would say. Because like Vodunoi is not going to be something that you're probably going to want to do until you are very full build. And I think that's totally valid. And I think the Granum Void, given just changing those 3 rewards into Endo, if you already have all of them, would be a spot where it's like, well, I could potentially get 1200 Endo for doing this, which means that like if I'm X Warframe that's pretty good at this, then the 2 minutes I spend in there, like that's a high ball, obviously, for that, are super worth it to me, and I'm always going to spend my coins here, and I'm always going to engage with that content. And it's obviously insanely difficult to balance, but I think that's the balance that has to be struck for it to be sustainable.
I agree. And I think when you sort of listed off the required endo to finish leveling your prime mods, it's like, well, yeah, endo is an evergreen reward for someone who's played 4,000 to 10,000 hours still, even because of the endo demands in that content, which I think is, interesting enough in terms of knowing that you have a goal, but not, how do you efficiently reach that goal? And your answer is VOD and I, but if we could do a diverse way of that as well.
Well, one of the things, and this is the most accessible to new players that I always suggest new players always do, is simply the weekly Maru Ayatan missions. Like that's an extremely valid way to get a lot of starter endo for new players. And then outside of that, I think in arbitrations we have the ability to get lots and lots of statues. The choke point, at least that I've heard from a large amount of players, and I would love to know, DK, Headshot, Shy, all your opinions on this. I think there is a drought of the ability to get like the Ayatan stars as compared to the actual Ayatans. So like putting a significant drop of like both Ayatan stars of different kinds in different areas would be really beneficial. Like say if you put a pack of 5 cyan stars in the Granum Void at tier 3 and 5 orange stars in tier 1, or in a different piece of content altogether, it's like, well, I got to go to these places to get my stars, and I got to go here to get my actual Ayatans from arbitrations or whatnot. And like diversifying the way you farm endo by getting 3 things from different spots and diversifying the gameplay and putting that stuff together to form these like really large quantities of endo, I personally think would be positive.
Like from my point of view, like there are places to go for, because they're in the those whatever they're called, relics. The literal
They're the
Requiem.
Kuba relics. Yeah,
but they're only like one at a time, aren't they? I would definitely love to see the number of those go up a little bit, because one at a time isn't a particularly. You get it, and you're just like, okay, well that's
it's not guaranteed either.
For my part, if the orange stars in the Requiem relics, if I got 4 or 5, not like 3, 4, or 5, I'm really not sure which one of those is the right number. If I got that many of the orange stars from like those relics, I'd be incentivized to be like, oh, Kuva survival's up on a Visure. I'm just gonna go do that because I want the stars. Like I have all of the lich weapons I want, and like many of them are very high percent. So like I'm a little bit disengaged from the Lich content. So I'm still going to engage with like these Requiem relics, and that populates those missions for people that do need to go hunt Liches,
Mhm.
because I want the stars, and like that might be a perfect place to increase that reward to incentivize parts of the community that want to farm that way.
Point of this conversation was, yeah, put more orange stars in. But I wonder, for me, just as we design more content, like, you're a lot. So you said, you've engaged with the lich system, you've got what you wanted, and it's done. And do you feel like, in terms of someone that's played the game, like, that's cool, you're done it, you beat it, and that's what's allowed to happen, and that's what should happen? Like, you got what you wanted, and you're done with the system.
Yes, and also no. The reason that like I've engaged with the Kuvalich system and I'm done with it is because I feel that the Kuvalich system, and I've expressed this in like a number of videos and things, and I know there are people that disagree with this. I've felt like the Kuvalich system is not integrated far enough into the game to be a thing I'm always engaging with. And what I mean by that is that like you go and get a lich, but then you're going and doing these very lich specific missions, which kind of pigeonholes me into doing these like very short missions that are only really for the Kuva lich. There's no additional thing I'm doing there. It's not like I'm doing, oh, I'm over on Hydron leveling my stuff, and this also is a Kuva lich mission, so my lich might show up and I'm gonna get some thralls. Like it's not like the thralls are populating all of Sedna, and no matter what mission I do on Sedna, there's gonna be some thralls and I'm gonna make some progress. So because I'm not making progress on a like very large level of interacting with just Warframe as a whole, I've just decided that like once I got what I wanted out of the system and like I have those important rewards, um, I just disengage from it entirely because them stealing my stuff and like only being in specific places isn't worth the time whenever I'm not really getting the big chunks of value out of it.
I'm curious what
And
everyone else thinks about.
I'm kind of with you on it. If I'm honest, it's very much you're doing the lich system, and that's what you're doing. The end of mission rewards aren't really enough of a reward to be specifically going for that, and just because you can't do. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't do the Kuva missions like the siphons and stuff. You can't do like relics or anything like that. So it's just far
Right.
too removed from everything else. And it just feels like you're very specific. It's like the whole content island kind of thing. It's its own little island again, rather than
Yeah.
being integrated into all the systems.
I kind of yes, kind of no. At the first couple levels of Kuvalich, yeah, it feels like I'm being sort of pigeonholed into the lich stuff. Once it gets to like level 5 and it's covering an entire planet, I feel like then I can start to do like I can be like, oh, I can go do like a survival thing, and I can still get my lich progress a little bit. Although I guess by that point I probably don't really need a ton of progress.
Well, so just DK, I do not want to lessen your point at all, and please tell me if I am.
Oh no, feel free, dude.
But whenever you do a Kuvalich like survival mission, it is like the like you can't go to like C rotation and stuff.
That's true. That's true. You are kind of limited on that. That is very true. I also kind of use it as a pseudo hard mode sometimes.
Oh, that's fair.
Like I'll level it up to 5, and then it's like, hey, if I go to an exterminate or something, the enemies are like level 160 at this point. So and what did Shai said? I'm probably not doing lich missions on purpose. Because you want hard mode nodes on your Star Trek. Okay, yeah, that is what she said. Literally, that's not even a meme. That's what she said. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to have it there just for like the level 160 enemies and to actually have threatening enemies and stuff like that too. So kind of yes, kind of no, little high, little low.
Yeah, I think it's tough because of the level of the Kuvalich content in a major way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure, I can see that. And I mean, one thing that's happened a lot is, and I'm still waiting for a scientific read on this situation, is people saying that Kuvalich has come too early in the game and people don't know what they're getting into. So that's the other side of this equation, is there's us who are like done with our liches, and then there's people that have possibly got them too soon. But the jury's still out on what that actually looks like for people that get them, because it's in some ways it's a goal. If you were a new player on your Warframe path and you had a lich, mastering rank 7 or whatever, that's a goal that I didn't have at mastery rank 7 that might have actually been kind of interesting. So
That's true.
And I think like there's an interesting solution that I've seen go around, which is that like progress on liches and thralls appear in considerably larger. They appear in many more locations, and then there's still the nodes that you can go to try and encounter your lich that are of a much higher level.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So you can make progress on like the combination, but not necessarily be fighting your lich.
It'd be kind of cool if one of the hard mode things was that just no matter what you're doing, Lich can send thralls at you, the Lich can come at you, and it just be like a thing that's tied into the hard mode as an additional difficulty modifier potentially. So it
That
doesn't
would-
matter whether you're
yeah.
doing it doesn't matter whether you're doing relics or any of your other missions, the Lich can come after you, which would be kind of cool.
That's probably a version 2 of hard mode because I know we're like feature complete by this point for what it is. But that would be dope because like liches are essentially a proxy hard mode, right? Like that's
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
what
yeah.
that's the purpose
Yeah.
they serve right now.
Also, if corpus liches do become a thing, can you please make them amalgams so that the amalgams come back and come back in a significant way because it makes sense given the Warframe universe and what the corpus would use against us?
Hell yeah! If that, I think the hope will be that the corpus, the unique per account corpus threat would be something like I know I think the problem I'm going to have is we're going to say corpus liches, but it's going to literally have nothing to do with the lich system at all.
Right?
Right? Like
Yeah.
we know Kuva can't be involved. We
Of
know
course.
the word lich can't be involved. So it's more like so we're going to use as just like a part of the casual vernacular. We'll say corpus liches, but we know that's not what that is.
The Kuva weapons, obviously, you can put Forma into them to get more mastery out of them. You can get like you get 1,000 extra points of mastery out of each and every weapon if you invest 5 Forma. So I initially thought that it was really cool, but I think as time has gone on, needing to level the weapons 5 times and only gaining mastery out of it really,
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's really cool to have something go to 40, but it feels like a lot whenever it's 13 weapons that go to 40. Is there a consideration for like doing that kind of feature set in the future?
We are aware that there is fatigue on the design and have actively ensured that we take a break from doing that at all for some upcoming content.
Awesome. So Melee, whatever 2.99, whatever version of Melee we happen to be on, I love. I think it's really incredible on the whole. But I think there are some holes in it, such as certain stances that aren't cutting it, if you will, when compared to some of the other stances that got boosted up, such as like the scythe stances and the sword and shield stances and things. And I feel like heavy blades are one of the weapons that kind of got put into a bad place with like their stances being toned down significantly from where they were previously. Is there any like stuff going on with like stances in the background for like modifier balance or like where stats and bonuses are?
I'll be honest, I'm not aware of, and that doesn't mean it's not happening, but I'm not aware of any super concerted effort to do a stance review. I think there are some competing priorities right now. I know it's one of those things where it's like it's not broken, so it's not as important as something that might actually be broken right now.
Right.
Such as what kind of conversations are we having about gas or viral in the context of everything. So these are often the same trust of mind share. So we just need to be aware of what gets brought up when, but that's basically it.
Is the rage mode still like on the cards at all? Like, is that actually still in? I don't want to say in development, but
yeah, it's more or less just a design pillar that we're hoping to achieve, but more work has been put into more I would say pressing priorities this year for revision passes, like revise before add new, or add new in a way that actually enhances what we've gotten quite good at. So it's not something that I've seen too much on right now, but I know it's still its design still exists.
Is another like revision of any of the systems in the game like kind of like on the table for like we should do this, or not really right now due to much of the TennoCon stuff needing to be worked on?
I will say kind of, because we always try and look at I know recently Scott mentioned stuff about the focus system and what would be revised there, which is a pretty relevant conversation in terms of kind of distilling the focus system down to what it achieved for progression, what it achieved for power, and what it achieved for lore, and looking at that and trying to build on it in a way that can kind of complete the how do I say this without spoiling some things? We kind of want to complete some of the unfinished things in the game that are there and had intended to be much more, is what I will say
Okay, fair
on
enough.
that. I think the next biggest overhaul you'll see will be still for Railjack for the command and for the intrinsic stuff. Like that's basically our most public commitment right now for that type of thing. But I'm always looking, I'm always reviewing, seeing what works, what doesn't. And while we work on TennoCon and all of it as a whole, it's certainly hoping to look back before we go forward, sort of thing.
With mentioning Railjack, is the Corpus, like, how far away do you reckon they are from joining the fight?
Yeah, it's intentional that the new tile set includes what will be the Corpus Railjack ships and stuff. Whether or not it's going to be ready in a time frame I'm comfortable sharing, I can't really say. But I can say work has gone into it, and we're hoping that when it releases, it fixes the remaining Railjack problems, right? Like we wouldn't release Corpus Railjack without command, in my opinion. So we have a lot to build on before just offering new stuff.
I've seen like a pretty universal, honestly, outlook that like Railjack has been mostly fixed, and people at this point are actually just like looking forward to seeing what intrinsics and stuff do, and like the new mission types coming in. But I'm curious from like the dev side perspective if it's been received like pretty much the same way.
Oh yeah. It's all about mission diversity and intrinsic stuff moving forward. We like the absolute necessity for Railjack at this point is more diverse gameplay and objectives that feel nuanced and interesting across multiple playthroughs, expanding the regions and all that.
What's your opinion on people not leveling one of their intrinsics to 10 so that they can immediately level command to 9 when it comes out?
That's their choice. I have no real.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't think. Are you guys familiar with the concept of filibustering?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I would like to.
Yes.
I feel at this point I'm filibustering Shy's ability to get a podcast up. You can't upload the podcast if we just keep talking.
That's absolutely valid. All right.
No. I'm good to keep going. I just think it's hilarious that we might actually give her like 3 to 4 hours of content that she'll have to navigate for an edit.
She edits dev streams all the
Yeah,
time. Usually when we do flying circus stuff, that goes for like 3-4 hours. So she's used to it. I mean, she doesn't even have to look for good gameplay now.
Not that she ever could find it on her own.
Oh.
Because the way our games work, every level that loads has different, basically like yes or no boxes for what's going to be in that level. Is there going to be an Iatan statue? There's a couple variables that are always present. And I saw some the other day post like, I wish Lotus at the beginning of every mission said, there's an Iatan here, search for it if you want to seek the rewards. And it's like, that's cool, but that would get abused so quickly for you would go into a capture mission. Did she say the transmission? Yes or no? Reload.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's the ways to try and address that, right? Which is like only do that whenever the initial objective has been completed, but then that gets abused because it's like, which objective can we complete the fastest so the Lotus will say the thing or not?
Yeah, like, is that bad? Is that a bad design? Is it at least getting people to play the game? I don't know. What are the qualities of such a choice that would negatively impact burnout and like meta engagement with our systems versus immersive engagement? So there's always this impossible challenge of how do you immerse people back into your game who've been playing it for 8 years. And I hope the Deadlock Protocol did that to some degree for certain player types, and I would just hope the rest of this year, I really hope, does that in a very effective way, because just like a lot of TV seasons can have bad seasons, bad episodes, I think our direction will be to have a hopeful, a good season coming up, for lack of a better metaphor, because we make mistakes, bad shit happens. Some episodes of TV are bad, and we had some bad ones.
Yep. Hopefully, a bunch of upcoming good episodes and no finales.
Yeah,
For
no
the love of
finales.
No
no
Season,
finales.
please.
All right. Well, at this point, this discussion/podcast or whatever it is extremely long. So I have only one extremely selfish question to ask. What is the deal with Excalibur through Inaros Noggles being released in release order, and then 8 Warframes were skipped, and now Baruch has a Noggle? My shelving unit is crying.
I can only explain this to you in a language that we will all understand, which is we actually, and this is a secret, we actually don't make the Noggles, they just appear. So we don't know where they come from. They simply exist. And we think the game is trying to talk to us about actually no,
See,
it just
I thought you were just trying to finally appease all 3 of the Baruch players.
whoa.
So
Wow.
Oh, DK, you go get some heat.
I know.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. If everyone would like to sign off in whatever order, DK, you're first in the list. So there we go.
Hi, I'm DK. I've been the arbiter of bad takes, and yeah, you can get me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube at DK Diamantes.
I am Headshot. Thank you very much for having me. You can find me on Twitter at _Headshot and on YouTube at youtube.com/Headshot.
I promise, despite these 3 hours, that like you can totally have fun with Warframe.
Hey, yo, Reb,
That's why we're here.
where can I watch you play Final Fantasy 14? That sounds like a really good time, dude.
Totally. You can find me at twitch.tv/Warframe streaming Final Fantasy all day.
Oh, you're gonna do it on the Warframe channel, huh?
Hey, if Meg can stream Animal Crossing there, I can do Final Fantasy.
Valid.
Poor Meg.
I'm Brozyme, and I do stuff at twitch.tv/Brozyme and youtube.com/Brozyme. I make all kinds of stuff. I'm streaming whatever. Who knows? Apparently, according to my community, I'm playing The Elder Scrolls Oblivion next. So whatever happens, happens. And I talk about Warframe a lot. Been
Me
very fun
too.
having everybody here. Thank you all for hanging out. And thanks, Shy, for putting all this together. It is always fun to join everybody here.
Yeah, this was the best. Love you guys.
Thank you,
Except you,
Shy.
Shy. Except you,
Same.
Shy.
Oh,
Wow.
if it makes you feel better, Shy, I love you more than Reb. Ooh.